The vision of the phallus in archaic times. While the matrifocal, pantheistic, and shamanic traditions of the Paleolithic and Neolithic eras appear to have emphasized the feminine principle, often characterized as a great or mother goddess, the masculine principle was not neglected. There is little evidence that in these early epochs of our history, reverence of the masculine conflicted with reverence of the feminine. To the contrary, evidence suggests that men honored both the masculine and feminine, as did women. It does appear, however, that rituals were often sexually segregated occasions. It is helpful to bear this in mind as we discuss the roles of the phallus and semen in Paleolithic, Neolithic, and primal rituals. Philip Rawson, historian of art and religions, suggests that our ancestors may have been profoundly moved by the visual shape of the phallus, that the sight of an erect penis may have triggered a range of powerful inner experiences, including the feelings of sexual arousal, active penetration, and seminal ejaculation. Alexander Marshak, a scholar of Paleolithic history and art, suggests that certain rites may have centered on the image of and processes associated with the phallus, including the ejaculation of semen and urine, and that such rites may have included the initiations of hunters, shamans, and boys into manhood. Early males may have been even more deeply inspired by the sight of two or more erect phalli in close proximity to one another. This is suggested by a baton found at Jorge d'Enfer in France, which not only depicts a fish believed by archaeologist Maria Gimbutas and others to be a manifestation of the great goddess, but also twin erect phalli. Says Marshak, fish, double, phallus, and water seem aspects of a larger myth, which, while here focusing on the male principle, also includes the goddess. That early males were inspired by the sight of erect phalli other than their own is also indicated by the myriad depictions of groups of nude men with erect phalli occurring in Paleolithic and Neolithic art. Such a representation is found in the cave of Les Trois Frères in France. Here, three men, shaman-like figures, appear to be dancing. One wears antlers and two wear bison masks. In Marshak's view, the Trois Frères sorcerers seem to be, or Trois. Yeah, Trois? Don't speak French. Impossible to learn it. The Trois Frères sorcerers seem to be involved in a rite that is sexual because they are naked and their sexual organs are exposed. He stresses, however, that by sexual rite he does not necessarily refer to a reproductive rite. Rather, such a rite might focus on virility without fertility connotation. Marshak also suggests that ceremonies that took place in the cave of Touc d'Audobert in France may have included phallic initiation rites. Phallus-shaped clay forms and 50 footprints of young males indicate that a ritual involving a group of men and youths who became sexually aroused during its course may have occurred there 11,500 years ago. Neolithic engravings found on rocks on the eastern shore of Lake Onega, near the White Sea, in the vicinity of Russia, depict a number of naked males with come on. Sorry about that, y'all. I'm outside, so okay. All right, where was I? Russia, depict a number of naked males with erect phalli hunting and skiing. Art historian Anne Ross believes that the phalli indicate that the skiers were probably engaged in some sacred activity, thus linking group male sexual arousal with both sacred activity and sport, hunting, or transportation. Ross also draws our attention to a group of rock carvings from Bohuslän, Sweden, which were probably executed during the first millennium BCE. One of these carvings shows men with erect genitalia engaged in a ball game with sticks. Ross indicates that this scene, like that of the Lake Onega skiers, points toward a linkage of group male eroticism, ritual, and sport. We must be cautious when making comparisons between Paleolithic or Neolithic archaeological remains and the beliefs and practices of primal or tribal peoples. Nevertheless, such comparisons may help us understand how homoeroticism and male gender variance intersected with the sacred in the earliest periods of our history. As scholar of religion Karl Nahr asserts, with certain reservations, it is possible to show continuity between the Paleolithic period and present day primitive societies that follow a similar way of life. Two examples of present day practices, including groups of symbolically erect males, can be found in Kurt Sachs' book, World History of the Dance. In one, Christian Theodor Grunberg, born 1872, transition 1924, an ethnologist who spent 2 years among the Cobeua of northwestern Brazil, describes a ritual in which the dancers, sporting enormous red artificial phalli, mimic anal intercourse as they chant, "Aye, aye, aye." The same book includes a photograph of a piece of pottery depicting a similar ritual dance undertaken by the Hopi. This depiction of the phallic rain dance of the Hopi portrays a circle of a dozen dancers, one behind the other, moving in a clockwise direction. Each holds an artificial erect phallus attached to his waist with one hand while placing his other hand near the buttocks of the dancer in front of him. All of the men are bending forward in a thrusting movement and appear to be simulating masturbation or anal intercourse. An engraved drawing appears on a wall of the Adaura cave near Palermo, Sicily. Executed around 10,000 BCE, the drawing is undoubtedly one of the most provocative works of Upper Paleolithic art. Discovered in 1952 by Iole Bovio Marconi, it depicts, in the words of Maria Gimbutas, a group of superbly drawn bird-masked male figures engaged in a ritual drama. Gimbutas suggests that these figures were, probably, participants in rituals dedicated to the goddess. From the bird masks, it appears that the men may have been honoring that aspect of the great goddess, now referred to as the bird goddess. The bird-masked men are dancing in a circle. They are nude except for the masks, thick with plumage that they wear. Their genitals are visible. At least 2 of the men have erections. In the center of the circle of dancers are 2 men, one lying above or beside the other. They face opposite directions. The legs of the figure above are bent at the knees. His penis erect, or he wears an artificial phallus or penis sheath. He wears a bird mask, though his is without plumage. Parallel lines connect his neck to his buttocks or ankles. His arms cover the legs of the male below him. The man beneath, larger in size, wears a plumed mask. He faces downward. His arms appear to be outstretched before him. He, like the other man, has an erection. Parallel lines link the penis of the male above to the buttocks of the male beneath. While some art historians have described the Adaura ritual as a sacrificial rite and the two central figures as victims, with the parallel lines representing chords, it occurred to me as I examined the work that the parallel lines might instead represent lines of energy, specifically male erotic energy, and that the ritual might be one of initiation, including same-sex eroticism rather than one of sacrifice. That the lines might represent male energy rather than nooses was suggested to me by a 7,000-year-old figurine from the Dimini culture of northern Greece, described by Gimbutas in The Language of the Goddess, just above the genitals of this male figure, whom Gimbutas believes to be a year god symbolizing the revival of nature, is an arc with a series of parallel lines, perhaps representing male energy or even ejaculated semen. This possibility is strengthened by the fact that the man is holding the phallus. Without sharing my thoughts with them, I showed several others, including a scholar of religion and an art historian, the image of the Adaura rite and asked them to describe it to me. To my surprise, all noticed the possible homoerotic content. I soon learned that while later observers have tended to emphasize the sacrificial interpretation of the Adaura ritual, the discoverer of Adaura, Bovio Marconi, referring to the pioneering work of Magnus Hirschfeld in gay studies, first noted its potential initiatory homoerotic connotation. Thus, it is conceivable that the Adaura ritual combined two elements of our domain, homoeroticism and sacred experience, perhaps in the form of shamanic reverence of a bird goddess. It is also possible that the third element of our domain, gender variance, was given expression at Adaura. This is suggested by the bird costumes worn by the dancers. First, these costumes, by way of creating the image of a hybrid human-bird, suggest animal transformation, which is often linked in shamanic traditions to gender metamorphosis. Second, if the men are indeed honoring the bird goddess, then they may also be celebrating a gynandrous woman-man aspect of the divine and trying to embody that aspect. The bird goddess's gender-mixing quality is indicated by a host of figurines showing her as having an avian torso, female breasts, and a phallic neck. Gimbutas explains that these figurines appear to have been associated by early peoples with other depictions of androgyny, or what we have here termed gender variance. In this way, the three elements of our domain, homoeroticism, gender variance, and sacred experience, may have been expressed at Adaura over 10,000 years ago. It is noteworthy that while art historians and others have been quick to point out any possible expressions of heterosexual activity in early art, few have considered the auto and homoerotic implications of the Adaura. Trois Frères, Lake Onega, and other depictions of groups of sexually aroused males. When the subject is broached, we are treated to coy statements like, "A ceremony can generally be sufficiently excitable to cause erection." And then we are left to figure it out for ourselves. While Rawson, Marshak, and others have been willing to admit that from time immemorial, penile erection has been linked to erotic pleasure and not always to reproductive urges, they have not been willing to admit that the experiencing of erection and ejaculation by men in group rituals may indicate cultic homoeroticism.